Hello and welcome everybody to a bonus episode of Three Things with JR. Thank you, the band Big, for the intro music. We're coming to you in the middle of, right between two normally scheduled episodes. We drop new ones every Tuesday here at Three Things with JR. However, this one is dropping tonight, Thursday, March 11th. 2 nights ago, right about this time, I did a live show with my friend, comedian Chris Allen, and his sister, Kellie. And the idea of the show is called Do You Believe? And Chris Allen asked for people that were willing to come on and talk about their spiritual journey, whatever it may be. And I thought, why not? This seems like a fun way, an entertaining way to really just talk about who I am and how I've gotten to the point in my life to be who I am today. And a lot of that involves, I guess you could say, my spiritual journey. However, it's more of a journey away from the spiritual in the end, really. And so, we spent about an hour and a half live on, I think it was on YouTube and Facebook and maybe Twitter, talking about how God has played a role in my life and whether or not I believe and why and all of that. That was a good one. So I thought, since I went ahead and recorded it, that I would put that out as a bonus episode so that you will basically be able to hear that entire interview in its entirety, ad-free. No ad in this one whatsoever. We're not doing, 3 actual things. It's just going to be basically a rebroadcast of that interview, the Do You Believe show with Chris Allen and his sister Kellie. So that's kind of it. I just want to let you know what's about to happen, and it's fun. I think you'll find it interesting. If you are at all interested in who I am and how I got to be who I am today, this would be the show for you. So here you go. Without further ado, Do You Believe? My hour and a half time talking about my spiritual journey with Chris Allen and his sister Kellie.
So we are live. We typically wait a few minutes to get people a few minutes to get in. But yeah, man, I'm glad you're doing this. You look like you're doing all right. I like your big phones.
Are you jealous? I have large cans.
You got some big cans, buddy. Cans. You don't know this, Kelly, but JR is kind of a local celebrity.
Locals where?
In town. Yeah, he's a local celebrity here in probably Central Virginia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Charlottesville and Harrisonburg. I'm on TV commercials. If you go on YouTube, if you're local, YouTube will know if you're local, and it'll put the ad for the company I work for up on the YouTube, like a pre-roll ad. So, and I do all the videos for the company I work for. So I'm kind of like the face of my company.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You know the company too. It's pretty cool.
Crutchfield.
You said I do know it?
Yeah. Crutchfield.
Yep, Crutchfield. So go to Crutchfield instead of Best Buy to buy all your consumer electronics.
That's what this show is about.
You actually do have a very good voice for it.
Yeah. If you really want your church sound quality to be top notch, please go to Crutchfield and
dude, that's not even a joke. We will not only make your church sound good, we'll design the system, get you all the specs, everything. Like, that's a real service we provide, and it's basically a free service, and then you can buy the stuff from us.
Sweet.
I like how the free service is you just showing how cool it can be. So
Yeah.
we'll show you how cool this can be for free, but now you got to pay.
That's exactly how it works. And there's plenty of people that take our designs and then don't buy our stuff. And we know that's going to be the case, but we still do it anyway. And it's for churches or any kind of house of worship or bars or schools or auditoriums, anything like that. No place is too large or too small.
Any place where spirits are worshipped or served.
That's right.
Thank you. Huh.
That's
All right, that's
so
the show,
dumb.
folks.
I hate that was really funny.
That's a good one.
That was.
Yeah. So what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Do You Believe with me, Chris Allen, and my co-host and my lovely baby sister.
It's your girl,
Kels, and my man. We were just talking about he's a celebrity here in town. My man, J.R. Stoffel. What's up, buddy?
Welcome. Thank you guys for having me today. I like that you told me before we went live that there's no pressure to be funny, which is good because my comedy chops are not what they once were, and not that they ever were great. But this is a whole different thing,
fishing, folks. Teach a man to fish for compliments.
I wouldn't say I've been dreading this or stressing it, but I've definitely been thinking about this show for like the past week and a half. Like, what am I going to say? I've got kids, I've got an ex-wife, I've got, an ex-in-law family, and this will be out there at some point. I'm going to share it out, and probably, I'm guessing we're going to get into stuff that I've probably never really talked about publicly before. So
sweet. This is what we want, man. I can't lie, man. I want to hear it.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because honestly, we never talked to anybody about that. What's their preparation to do this? Because it's for some people, it's dredging up some trauma. It's thinking of dredging up a lot of different things, and it's not just impacting you, but it's impacting other people.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that perspective to even talk about next.
Yeah, man. No, thank you so much. So. What do you want to start at the beginning? Like little baby, little JR. Are you
sure?
Is little JR is he going to church? What's up?
So I was baptized when I was a baby. My dad grew up in there's my dog, everybody. My dad grew up in a small town in Iowa and went to Catholic church every day. And when he married my mom and they had me, I grew up in Northern Virginia. And so my dad, his family would have been very upset had I not been baptized. And I think technically I was baptized in like an Episcopal church, which is, from what I know, is like Catholic light. But so they were able to tell everybody and take pictures, and everybody back home thought I was, baptized Catholic. They found out I wasn't. They were not too happy about that. But I was not raised Catholic in any way, shape, or form. We didn't go to a Catholic church. That was not a thing. We didn't go to church for most of my childhood. We started going when I was around 12 maybe, and we started going to, I lived in Falls Church, Virginia, small town just outside of DC, and we started going to the Falls Church Episcopal, which is kind of it's a prestigious church, or at least it was back then. It was the church like George Washington, one of the churches George Washington went to when he was in town, that kind of thing. Wow. And so it was historic. Lots and lots of very, very wealthy people went there. I think my mom was enthralled by that a little bit. It seemed like the coolest church to go to. So we started going. I went to youth group, and that's where I started having the first thoughts that I might actually believe in this thing. So youth group. I loved going to youth group. Like, the music was fun. The speakers were great. Like, it was the best youth group I've ever experienced in any way, shape, or form. And I didn't mind that we were doing Bible studies, even though I really kind of wasn't into it until there was it was like a summer camp. And I fell into this, like, do you want to believe? Do you want to speak? Do you want to, I can't even remember the words now. It's been so long, but do you want to give your life to Christ?
All right. Just commit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or get saved or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And I said yes. And I think it was an emotional kind of in the moment thing, not something that I actually believed, because even through all of that, like, the undercurrent for my entire life with regards to any kind of religion has been an innate skepticism that I've never been able to shake.
Okay. So what do you think made you say it was just the emotion do you know what it could have been specifically that was just like, I think I might believe in this?
I think it was either somebody's testimony or it was the emotional service that they had that night. There was something about it that really grabbed me and made me think, oh my gosh, there's something to this. But it was really more an in the moment emotion, not an actual like belief.
Okay. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people find themselves in that boat. It's just
Yeah.
like I don't know if they would still use it, but like you kind of like drunk in the spirit in a kind of way.
Yeah.
Where like, and people would kind of say that's a good thing. Like you got caught up spiritually. Like that's what it is. If I'm not mistaken, Kelly, am I wrong in that? Like that's.
I think that's what traditionally people say that. Traditionally, people will say that maybe in a more just from my experience, I can only speak like Pentecostally. Now, I know for me now, I don't necessarily believe in that. I don't necessarily believe it has to be the lack of a physical feeling or the presence of a feeling doesn't mean anything. And that's one thing my pastor always says is, we've traditionally through the years, we've presented faith as like, do you feel the Holy Spirit, and really focus on this emotional thing where then it causes confusion in people when they don't feel something specific.
Yeah.
Then they think there's something wrong with them. So that's not necessarily the evidence of a spirit to me in my mind. Yeah, at least how I feel it. But I think it can absolutely. I have actually felt that myself, but I think it's just in that moment, it's the peace or the comfort that I particularly need. It's just that personal communication that I experience with God in that moment. But there's times where I'm having a difficult moment and I don't feel anything, but it doesn't negate the fact that for me, He is there with me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Jay, you are 12, 13 at the time when this has happened. When this happened.
Yep, exactly. It's like 7th or 8th grade, I still when I got home from that summer camp trip, and I was working for my dad. He painted houses, and I told him that I gave my life to Christ at summer camp, and we didn't really talk in depth about it at the time because I don't think he was sure how to handle hearing this news. He probably started thinking about his time as a child going to church. He didn't really continue going to church or in any way use religion to shape me at all. Like it just wasn't a thing. And so I'm sure it caused him to be like a little concerned with like how to deal with this. Do we support it? Do we question it? I'm not sure what I feel about the whole thing. And so we didn't talk much about it. Instead, he clearly went home that night and talked to my mom, and my mom said, I'll handle it. And it was a couple days later, my mom took just me out to dinner, and we were talking, and she brought it up and asked me, what happened, how I felt. I tried to explain it, but I don't think I was very clear because I had already, like, that feeling was long gone. 3 or 4 days later, it was gone. Like I was having a hard time justifying why I had even made that decision at that moment or still felt that way. I thought I did, but I wasn't sure. And that was the first time that anybody sort of helped me understand that it's okay to be skeptical about the whole thing. Like that.
Okay,
So basically Mom was like, we don't know who wrote the Bible. There's a lot of theories, right? But can we say 100% for certain? I can't. It could have been written by God. It could have been written by a bunch of stoned hippies. I think that was literally a quote from my mom when we were having that little talk. And so,
wow. So they didn't support it or like tell you couldn't do it. It was kind of like
not at all. No, I continued to go to youth group and be a member of that church and enjoyed every minute of it. But I knew right then and there that my skepticism was way stronger than any and more foundational to me, like to who I am, as any kind of fleeting emotion that I had that night at summer camp. And I just I knew that, and I've kind of known it ever since.
Mm.
So okay, let me ask this. So your parents were kind of like, you know, they were kind of like, about it. Do you think that's what fueled your skepticism? Like, I'm into this thing, but my parents don't seem like they believe it. So, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Do you think that they attribute it to your skepticism by not being supportive, or telling you you couldn't do it? Were you looking for?
So they definitely were not telling me I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It was very clear that my mom wanted me to know how she felt and that it
Okay.
was totally okay if I felt differently.
So you knew that you were completely they were completely fine with you going.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And, we as a family continued to go to that church throughout, for the next couple years before we all sort of faded away from it. But yeah, it was not like it wasn't supported. It was that my mom wanted me to really think it through and make sure that it was something I actually believed and wasn't just something that I was caught up in.
So what about?
I got a
Kelly.
question. This is just my interest.
This might be your same question.
I'm always interested on if does that feel like genuine support for people when someone says like, "Oh, I believe this," and then they provide their perspective, and then I don't know, because it's just like I think about things like you don't take a 5-year-old who says, "I believe in Santa Claus," and your parents are like, "You know what? I bought the toys, but if you want to believe in that, it's fine." Like, does that how is that does that track for people? Because I always find that super interesting.
Yeah,
when parents take that perspective, but we don't take that perspective with other things. You don't never like you see a kid and like, I don't think they'll be good at sports. He's like, buddy, I don't think you're gonna be great at it, but you can do it. Like I just always think that.
Yeah, it's just like there wasn't support.
How does that genuinely feel like support? Or
to me, in this situation, it does feel genuine because she didn't just come right out and say, well, here's what I believe. She took the route of asking me questions first. Like, she wanted to know more. She wanted me to voluntarily tell her what happened, why I believed this, give me the circumstances. Tell me, what do you think about the Bible? And I had to begin articulating beliefs that I didn't really have. And I was struggling to do that. And she was recognizing that it wasn't there for real. I think she recognized that. And I don't think she tried to get me to believe or not believe what she believes or doesn't believe. But I think she just wanted me to think about it. And part of that was a natural conversation where that she explained what she thought.
Okay. I was always interested to find out.
I have a question. So your mom was kind of on the fence. Your dad is the same way, but you said you were going to this church. Like, what was the purpose of you guys going? Like, if none of y'all really believed it, was it really just like it's Sunday, we're supposed to go? Like, did you guys get anything out of it? Was it a social thing for you guys, for your parents? Like, did they think it was just the right thing to do? Like, what was the motivation behind it?
So my dad did not keep going for too long. So he went, but he wasn't like, he didn't become a member. He didn't become active in the church at all.
Okay.
I did. In addition to the youth group, I was an acolyte. One of the guys that lights the candles and is up there on the, for lack of a better term, stage, whatever it is, the pulpit, lighting candles, and I'm wearing a robe and all of that stuff. So I was doing that. I was into it. The pomp and the circumstance. It was kind of. I felt it was. I liked the idea of doing it. I liked dressing up. I liked putting on a little bit of a show. Yeah, it was weird.
Was there something missing from home were you looking for, like something to belong to? Like do you think there was something missing at home where you found it at church, or is it?
No, I think it was somebody suggested, hey, you might want to be an acolyte. And I said, what is an acolyte? And they explained what it is. You show up early to church, you light the candles, you put things out for the priest or whatever, you put the things back away. It was like a job, and it had a little bit of prestige. And I think that was attractive to me. That's
what I'm asking. What do you think that, like, were you like getting beat up in school? Like, it seems like you were looking for something important to do. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to say it like in a bad way, but it seems like you were looking for a purpose. And if that purpose had some prestige or that position had some purpose, that if that position had purpose and prestige, it was attractive to you. So it seems like you were looking for something, and then church provided it.
I took every opportunity to perform. Like I sang in variety shows. I was in the choir.
Man, I didn't know none of this about it.
Yeah, man. I sang like songs to my entire high school in the middle school variety show. I sang, I danced. I mean, I did stuff. I've always enjoyed performing in almost any capacity, and this felt like a performance. So I don't think it was
okay.
I don't think it was filling a void left from my parents who weren't doing something they should have been doing. I think it was just my natural desire to want to be up in front of people.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah. It didn't necessarily have to be your parents, but I was like, it seemed like there's something you were looking for. Something. Some people go to karate or sports and. But you're doing all this acting and performing in school, and this is just another outlet for you to perform.
Yeah, exactly.
And be on stage and be in front of people.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I could see you liking the services because like there's a script and there's words to memorize and there's, like you said, pomp and circumstance. It feels like it's a production.
Exactly. A production is the right word for it, for sure. Now, that lasted for, I'm going to say about 6 months, where I was into that, right? Like I had to do like every third Sunday or something like that. So I was doing it for a while, and then it became like summertime, and I had, at this point, I had to do with the early service. My parents weren't going to the early service, so I had to ride my bike there by myself, be an acolyte at the early service, and I had plans to meet friends at the pool after that. So I showed up and got all dressed up in the robe, but underneath the robe, I was wearing a swimsuit, a t-shirt, and like
flip-flops,
not quite like Vans with palm trees on them, like beach shoes, dock shoes, something like that. And unfortunately, you could see those shoes as they came out from underneath the long robe. I was hoping they would just kind of disappear, but they didn't.
That's funny.
The guy who was in charge of the service, the priest that day, I remember him vividly saying, "Adam, I am appalled that you would wear those shoes to this service." And that was literally the last day of my being an acolyte. I was like, yeah.
Wow.
I'm out. Yeah.
Yeah. I was this isn't fun anymore at all. So I was out.
So you were out. No more going at all. You were completely done.
So I was out of being an acolyte. I was still into youth group. There, at some point, youth group lost its luster because it was different people running it. It just wasn't quite the same. After about 8th grade, 9th grade, I just fell out of that. I kept in touch. I went to Bible studies with some of the kids that I used to go to youth group with, but I really fell out of doing that right around 9th grade. And I just went a totally different direction in my high school years that involved zero church, zero God, zero religion of any kind. It wasn't being pushed on me. I wasn't asking for it, and I was fine with that.
Okay. So while you're an acolyte, over those 6 months, you said you're enjoying, the youth group and all that kind of stuff. How are you dealing with the lessons? Like mentally, are you just really there to hang out? Like, none of that's getting through. Are you like, oh, I can see that? Are you asking questions, or like, what's your attitude towards like this, towards the teachings?
I remember during a Bible study where they were, and I'm not going to get the details right, but they were talking about Christ dying for your sins and coming back, and is it God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit? Is it the
Holy Trinity?
The Holy Trinity. Is he still alive? Is he not still alive? Like, there was something about one of the Bible studies where I'm like, wait, how can that be? That doesn't make sense. And their explanation for that was like, yes, exactly. We don't understand it. Like, that's the power of Christ or something. Like, you just got to take that for what it is. And I was like, what? You did not help me understand that at all. And
okay,
that was
wow.
That was about as deep as I remember getting in any kind of those Bible studies. Most of the time I was there, we would play games, football out in the churchyard. We would sing songs. Like, I was there for all of the fun stuff. When it came down to reading and studying and getting into the Word, I was not into that for the most part.
Wow. Did anyone ever, like, any people in leadership positions ever go, hey man, we kind of see you're not taking to the lessons, or were you so active, like, or such a good member, or part of the class that they didn't care?
They didn't know that I wasn't into that. I mean, I wasn't displaying any kind of rebellion to it or anything. I just either
still acting, still performing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And at some point, I got to the age where they wanted me to start transferring from being like a kid in youth group to being maybe working towards the people that run youth group, right? And that's when I was like, no, that doesn't sound like the fun that I'm used to having here. I don't want to be in charge of making it fun. I want to receive the fun of youth group.
Yeah.
And when that became the thing, I was kind of out.
Okay, I'm kind of surprised that you didn't have that thing of like, oh, you know what? This is what it used to be. If I'm in charge, I can make it what it used to be. That just shows like you had, because I guess you would have to probably plan lessons and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, what? I don't want anything to do with that.
Exactly. I wasn't. If I was going down the path of believing, then I probably would have. It probably would have appealed to me for both the am I saving souls aspect of it, as well as the performance aspect of it, and the prestige and the responsibility of it. But because I wasn't feeling that part of it at all, it was just a fun thing until it wasn't a fun thing anymore.
Okay. So high school happens, no church, no nothing. You're doing whatever. And I know you say, is there anything that happens in between there other than you meet your wife? And I know, I'll obviously let you tell the story. Now, how does this unfold? You get married?
Yeah.
How old are you?
So I met Angela, my ex-wife, when I was 18, literally a couple days after I turned 18. She was 10 years older than me. She had just left her first ex-husband. They weren't fully divorced yet, but she had a 3-year-old. And I met her at this beach area. My parents had a house down here in Greene County. We lived in Northern Virginia. We would come down here on the weekends, and that's where I met her. And so my friends and I started coming.
What are you doing?
I know. Yeah. It's
18, you meet a 30-year-old woman with a kid.
That's right. And I started coming down here on the weekends without my friends to hang out with her, and it became a thing. And about a year later, I had moved in with her into her house, and then 6 months after that, so a year and a half, I proposed to her, and then we had to wait for her actual first divorce to completely go finalized. But then we got hitched. So
you're like 19, 20, and she's
wow. I could not imagine.
Okay, so what is she? Are you going to church at this point? Is she talking about it, or you're just kind of like?
So she made it clear before we got married that she was a believer. God was first in her life, that I would be second in her life, not first, but second to God, which, I mean, logically made sense. I get it. If you're a believer, that makes sense.
Okay. So your background allowed you to, you understood that.
Yeah. I could understand that, and I didn't have a problem with it. She did want us to go to church. We started going to Ruckersville Baptist Church, and we started becoming very social with the people there. It was enjoyable to go to church with her and to that church. The fellowship dinners after church. I played on the church softball team. I became friends with several of the people there, and so I didn't have any problem going to church. and letting that pastor be the guy who actually married us and all that. So Angela wanted to do like daily devotionals, which I did for a little while. I think we were probably in the honeymoon phase where I was like, yes, I gotta do this to impress her, to let her know. And I'm not against it. Like there was nothing in it that was offending me. But I mean, I can't say that I believed all the stuff or because of it or that it made any difference. It was just something I was willing to do to be with her because I loved her and wanted to be with her. And that was what it was going to take. And so I did that.
Wow. So how long? Okay. So how long does this go on?
So we get married. We continue going to church for a while. At some point, Angela decides that I think she had like a nursing friend who was going to a different church, a Seventh-day Adventist church. And I think she had spoken to Angela about Saturday being the Sabbath, and Angela started reading it in the Bible and felt like she agreed with that. And so she said to me one day, and we hadn't been going very regularly at this point, but she said to me, I want to start going to church again. Chester, my stepson, her son, he was about 6 or 7, and we had a baby. My daughter Allison, she was not even 1 year old yet, maybe 1 or 2, somewhere in there. And Angela said she wanted to start going to church, and I said, that's cool. If you want to go to church, go for it. I'll stay here with the kids. And she's like, no. I want to bring the kids with me. And I was like, oh, okay. Because at this point, I hadn't really thought much about whether I actually believed or not in a long time. And so she sort of forced that by saying, let's go to church. I'm like, I don't know if I want to raise the kids that way. I'm like, my daughter, Allison, this is the time. Like, I need to start deciding how that's going to be.
Right.
Is that going to be a thing? Like, what's the approach here? And so I went with her to one Saturday service. The people at the church were really nice. I didn't feel like it was something I wanted to do, but I went occasionally. At some point, I started going regularly with her because it became very clear that this was now her life. Like, it took over Angela's life. And it's a Protestant religion and very similar to Baptist in a lot of ways, but it's got two main things that separate it. It's the belief that Saturday is the Sabbath, and it's also the belief that like Jesus's imminent return is like really, really soon to be happening, and that we have prophecy to show that by this prophet that helped build the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So it got a little crazy, but I was on board. Like I was on board because it was clearly the direction our family was going. And being 10 years younger than Angela, I kind of felt like she and her wisdom probably overruled my immaturity. And so I didn't feel like I needed to.
That's a mature thing, you know. I can't lie. That's kind of a mature especially for a guy who guys typically have egos. For you to go, you know what? She's 10 years older than me. I'm young. And how long have you guys been married at this point? A couple of years.
Yeah, we married in 94. Allison was born in 96, so this is 97, 98, 99, right in there, and for a few years after that, because I was in and on board with it for a long time. So
all right, so like. So you're going, and like, do you get anything good out of it at all? Are you ever close to like, okay, I think I might be there, or is this like all bad? Like just.
So it was good for a while, for a long time. Like I got a lot out of it.
That's good.
We started running the youth group at this church. So that thing I didn't want to do years ago, now I'm doing it with Angela. We are the ones that got the church to agree to have a youth group. Like they didn't have one before that.
Wow.
Yeah. We started taking the groups of kids, our kids, to a Seventh-day Adventist summer camp, and participating in things there. And like all those same feelings I was having in youth group, I started having again, like doing that stuff, because the Seventh-day Adventists, there's a bunch of really cool people in the Seventh-day Adventist Church that don't take the religion so strict and seriously as the church we were going to. So
I was gonna say, yeah, we're going from Baptist to
our local Seventh-day Adventist church in Greene County in Ruckersville is from my experience one of the most conservative Seventh-day Adventist churches there is. And the people that were running these summer camps were not that. Like, these were people that were cool because they didn't believe so strictly that you can't do this or that on the Sabbath. And, there's so many tenets that they start to really sort of force on you in the Seventh-day Adventist that I just...
can we hear some of those?
Yeah, so the health message is a huge thing. Like, when
I don't know what that is.
the health message is all about eating vegan, no alcohol, no sugar, like... there's a health message that's part of religion in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's a big thing.
They would have lost me right there.
Yeah. Has that always been a thing, or is that something fairly new?
No, that's always been a thing ever since Ellen White wrote about it in many different books and tracts back in the 1840s, I think, something like that.
Oh wow, okay, so it's all right.
Yeah, no, it's
You just hear vegan and you go, oh, is this something that some weird person came into power and was like, we're vegan now? Okay. So the health message. What else? Some of other doctrine that you don't believe with or teachings. You're like, I'm not on board with this.
They were hyper focused on converting souls, but they were specifically focused on people that believed in the wrong religion. So they basically anybody that didn't believe in worshiping on Saturday, as it was clear in the Bible, was wrong. And they wanted to educate all of those people. Like, so instead of focusing on people that have actual physical earthly needs that maybe they could help meet with donations, with food, with outreach, with whatever, right? Companionship, anything, they were going after the people that were already believers but in the wrong church. And the biggest offending church was Catholicism. And so you might want to mute when you do that.
Sorry. I thought
So I was so on board with it for a while that the church sponsored a trip of a bunch of Seventh-day Adventists from this area to go to St. Louis to hand out Seventh-day Adventist tracts that were made up of things that Ellen White had written back in the 1800s, and hand them out when the Pope visited St. Louis. So I went on that trip. I went and handed out Seventh-day Adventist tracts to Catholics. And I remember I was thinking, how can I get this guy who's obviously a priest, he's wearing a priest outfit, how can I get him to take this tract, right? These people are already, they're kind of onto us. They don't want the material we're trying to hand out. How can I get him to? So I said, excuse me, Father. And because that's what you call a priest if you're a Catholic. So I thought maybe he'll stop and talk to me if I call him Father. And he did. And I gave him a thing. And I got, I don't know if scolded is the right word, but one of the other Adventist dudes who was with us was like, you don't call them Father. There's only one Father. If you call him Father, that's just wrong. You can't do it like that. I'm like, but I got a thing in his hand. And he's like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. He's like, so I was doing it wrong. I was doing it wrong. Right.
Wow.
Right.
And it was not long after that we wanted to do fun things with the kids in youth group. We got shut down. Like, I wanted to have something called like a bicycle rodeo. We had bicycle shops locally bringing stuff to the church to have show kids how to ride bikes, teach them helmet safety, have a little obstacle course. We had, it was awesome. To get this church to agree to do that, I had to agree not to call it a bicycle rodeo because rodeo is too crazy of an event. We don't want the church associated with a rodeo. When a bicycle rodeo is just a thing that most of the time, like, the police put these on,
Yeah.
And the church was just hyper afraid of like appearances, and they would always talk about, they felt like they were criticized for being legalistic, which I had never even really heard that term until they said it.
Yeah.
And I realized later that they were right. They were legalistic. Like, they were definitely all about the letter of the law and way less about the spirit of the whole thing.
Wow.
Wow, that's so crazy. Because now that you said, I think I remember that actually happening as a kid at church when I was younger. Like, I think the fire stations and police station would just like call churches like, hey, can we come and show? Like, that doesn't seem like a crazy thing to do. It's like,
no,
helmet safety is.
They heard the word rodeo and they were thinking bucking
Wow.
broncos and rednecks and all of that stuff. And they're like, we can't associate with that. I'm like, no, but bicycle rodeo is a thing. It's like a community event. It's a great thing. It's not an actual rodeo. And I had to convince them of that. And they still only let us do it when we wouldn't call it a bicycle rodeo.
Wow.
And it's a chance for, I mean, if they really want to witness to people, it's like, it's a chance for maybe people to go, oh, what's going on over there? They come over and go, hey, come on, ride the bikes and meet the, the firefighters, and this is our church, and this is what we believe.
Yeah.
But that's wild, man.
And we were able to do it.
I think that's what ours was. Yeah, it was like that. Like, anybody in the neighborhood can come, bring your, like, I want to say, like, they had, like, compressors to fill kids' bikes with air. It was just like a thing that the community just does.
Yeah. We had people from the bike shops that were teaching like basic bicycle maintenance, like how to replace it, how to fix a flat tire, things like that, and riding bikes and bike safety and helmets. We were giving away helmets that the bike shops gave us. I mean, it turned out awesome. Like, don't get me wrong, the event itself was great, but it was one of the. I could almost say that was the beginning of the end for me with that church, because of the fight over things like we can't call it a bicycle rodeo, and they are going to fight. They're going to fight us. They're going to not have this event if I insist that we call it that. That seemed ridiculous, and I just continued to have my eyes opened to how ridiculous this church was, and at some point, I just decided I was done. And there wasn't like, that was the beginning of the end. I don't remember the end of the end, but we should back up because...
Just back up.
I'm going to back up because what we haven't discussed is the second time that I really thought I believed. And it was at that summer camp where I was having those experiences again. And there was like, they were putting on a play that was recreating the crucifixion of Jesus going up on the cross. And I remember this one vividly because, I mean, it very much got me emotionally. In retrospect, it's kind of like when you watch a movie where the grandfather dies and everybody's emotional and you can't help but sort of choke up and tear up and feel like it was that feeling, maybe amplified a little bit because it was live people in front of you really putting it on. They had done such a great job that I got up and went up when they did an altar call, and I literally got baptized the next day.
And you're an adult at this point?
Yes. I'm in my late 20s as a father and husband, and I got baptized.
So, so your wife must have been like ecstatic about that.
Oh yeah, she's like, finally, like we got him,
right?
Because I don't think she was sure until then, and then she was sure.
Man, someone wrote, my man Paul wrote, I had a Seventh-day compound close to where I grew up. They had horses. I tried to feed one an apple. It swallowed my hand and chewed. Ugh, that's what an arsehole. I thought it was gonna be a profound. He got bit by a horse. Sorry to hear that, Paul.
That's what happens. Adventist horses will bite your hand off right away. They'll bite the hand that feeds them.
He was doing it wrong. He was trying to feed him on the Sabbath, maybe.
That's right. Probably was.
So, what other things can't you do on the Sabbath? You know, we were talking about this legalistic. No, Paul, it's fine. It's funny, man. It's okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
So you don't want to work or cause anybody else to work. So if you're
what if you got hurt?
So that's obviously an exception, right?
Okay.
Medical professionals probably need to work on the Sabbath, and that's something, of course, Jesus would be okay with, even though it's your job and you're getting paid. It has to be done. So that was something that they could make an exception for. But if you were driving to church and you're like, "Oh my gosh, we forgot to get gas yesterday. We don't have enough." How do you deal with that? Like, that was a constant sort of problem for people going to church. Was I need to get to church, but there's not enough gas in the car, so I'm going to have to stop and get gas at a gas station, and that's wrong. I've been told that is wrong. So how do I do it? And so you would feel guilty about stopping for gas because you didn't want to feel guilty for not going to church. And then you wouldn't tell anybody at church that you stopped at a gas station on the way.
So would it be the act of you like getting out and pumping the gas, or
it would be the act
what's
of
the part about the gas?
You're paying for something on the Sabbath. Even if you use a card at the pump, you're paying. You're having a monetary transaction. You're causing.
That's weird. I'm pretty sure they had no issues taking an offering on Saturday.
Oh no, of course, no tithing money. Bring it, bring it.
You can do that on Saturday.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I'm making a joke here, but anyway,
wow. Okay, I didn't. Never
That's
heard that.
I had no idea that was a Seventh-day Adventist thing.
Me neither.
So
never knew that.
So what about going out to dinner? I'm sorry to say none of that.
No.
Man.
And basically it's very similar to hardcore Jews. That it's the Sabbath. It's the Saturday Sabbath. Jew. Yeah, I mean,
I just picture face tats.
Yeah, metal Jews. No, but like, I mean, they won't use a telephone. They won't turn lights on.
Oh, I
right?
know. We had neighbors that were Orthodox.
Yeah,
they were Orthodox.
That's a better word than hardcore. Orthodox.
Yeah. Where I live here in Rochester, I live in Brighton. It's a large Jewish population, so it's nothing on for me to see. Like on Saturday, it's like the streets are just filled with Jewish people walking and whatnot. No matter what it looks like outside, they're all walking.
Yeah, they won't operate a car. They will walk instead of drive. They won't use their phones. If they have a cell phone or whatever, they'll leave it at home. Like so Seventh-day Adventists aren't quite like that, but almost.
Okay.
It's very much like that. The Sabbath begins at sundown Friday night and ends at sundown Saturday night. So
that's a long time. That's a day. I'm talking.
It's a full 24 hours, Chris.
So I want to ask them a question. So what do you do about dinner and stuff? I mean, you can make yourself food, obviously, right? Or is that work?
You should try hard to do as much before the Sabbath as you can so that you don't have to spend a lot of time preparing meals on the Sabbath. So
can you use a microwave? I know this is dumb stuff.
No, it's not dumb. You got to think about this stuff as an Adventist, because if you're going to have your Adventist friends over and you throw something in the microwave, you're going to think, uh-oh, is this okay? Like, are they going to think I'm using electricity and the electric company's working? Is that crossing a line? And for some, it might be. For Orthodox Jews, it definitely would be. But with Adventists, you don't know, especially at this church where it was super strict. And there were people that took it almost as seriously as Orthodox Jews. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of other Adventist groups and churches that are not quite this strict. They get it. Like, we're in a modern society. This is how it works now. Of course you can use the microwave. Of course you forgot to get gas. You can go to the gas station. They're more practical about the whole thing than the church that I was exposed to.
So can I ask this then? So what was your guys' kind of routine to like make sure you weren't violating any Sabbath rules?
So Angela took it super seriously. I basically just let her do whatever. She was typically fixing the kids' dinner, her dinner. I would often eat whatever I wanted rather than what she was fixing, because she was fixing like a bunch of vegan stuff, which some of it was really good, and I would eat it, but I often would fix my own stuff. And so I always thought it was a little dumb how strictly it was being taken. But she would definitely spend Friday during the day preparing food, doing all that stuff, so that dinner Friday night after the sun had gone down wasn't something she had to slave over the stove for on Friday night. And then lunch was usually taken care of at church, so she had something prepared to bring to a fellowship lunch at church. And then you would spend the afternoon probably hiking somewhere where that you didn't have to pay to get into. Like if you wanted to hike in the Shenandoah National Park, our church would do that, but only if we had pre-purchased the access cards, like a year pass to get into the park, right? Like we didn't want to have a transaction to go hiking and things like that. But that's what our Sabbath was filled with doing was,
Wow. So you said after the whole rodeo debacle, rodeo gate. That was the beginning. That was the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Was this the beginning of the end of your relationship? Like, what's going on there? Like, if she's so strict and you're like, I'm out. How is that affecting your marriage? in your household?
Yeah, so I slowly extricated myself from the whole thing. It wasn't like one day I'm out. It was I pushed for us to finally stop running the youth group and let somebody else do it, or maybe the church doesn't have one. And then when that was no longer on my plate, then I was able to, I'm not going to go to church this week. You guys can go. I'm going to sleep in or something like that. Or I've got something else to do. And so I would slowly just sort of stop going, every couple of Saturdays. And then it was every Saturday. And then I finally was like, I'm not going anymore.
Okay.
And even still at that point, I didn't have words to express exactly how I felt about the whole thing. I just knew I didn't believe and wasn't into it. And so I stopped. And Angela just had question after question about that. It was very unsettling for her to see me go from like all in, baptized, running the youth group into the whole thing to none of that, not into it at all. And she basically stopped being able to trust me as a person. Because if I was able to stop doing that, well, was I just acting the whole time? Or was I really into it and I just had a change of heart, or what? And I tried for a long time to put it into words, and I tried probably 20 different ways, which didn't help because I didn't have a consistent explanation for how I felt and what I was doing. And it only caused her to just not be sure of who I was anymore.
Okay. So how long is this whole process?
A couple years. This is a couple years of transitioning.
Like literally a couple, 2, 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
2, 3, something in there where I'm transitioning from all in to all out, and her sort of trying to figure all that out. And she's like, what would it take? And when you come, why won't you come back? And I couldn't help. There was no help. There was no way for me to make her understand my feelings on it because I didn't have all the right words and I wasn't able to. And there was a mental block. Like if I wasn't all in, then I was all out kind of thing. Not that she was going to leave me or anything, but this is not a person I can trust. If they did that huge transition, that's not working.
So she came out and said, I don't know if I can trust you.
Yes.
Now, how did that make you feel?
This, we are entering the worst 10-ish years of my life.
This goes on for a decade.
Yeah, roughly.
Wow.
Yeah, from the start of the transition to kind of the end of everything was somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 years.
So you were married for how long were you were married for? Almost 20 years?
Just under 20 years.
Wow.
Yep.
That is. So what are these 10 years like? And is it all church? It's all church. So basically,
for Angela,
that's the underlying.
Yeah, it's all church. It's all do I believe and all of that. And when it was clear that I didn't, and that she was not going to, in any way, shape, or form, adjust her beliefs to mine or take God any less seriously than she was. In fact, it amplified it. Like she felt she had to go harder at it. And so it like there was Bible studies every day at home, and we homeschooled our kids. So she had like total control of what the kids heard, read, saw, thought about, everything. And I was this person that was not to be trusted, to the point where we're getting into some weird territory here because I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose her, but
whatever you're comfortable with, man. You know what I'm saying? So
well, I believe that there was something mental going on with Angela that was either just psychological or it could have been chemical. I honestly don't know. She went as far as you possibly can in not trusting somebody, to the point where she was actively thinking I was doing things that I wasn't doing. She and seeing me. She would not just think I was doing them. She would claim that she saw me doing things that I just wasn't doing. And it was...
That sucks.
Yeah, I was completely baffled with how to deal with that, and that was really the worst. Like, I'm not probably going to get into all of the details of
Yeah,
that.
you don't have to.
Yeah.
This is more about the spiritual journey, but
Right. So, but this is the my lack of religion or believing caused all this. This is like, she wasn't a crazy person. To me, she wasn't a crazy person until this. She was a little
Right.
she was a little extreme in her beliefs, but it all was logical to me until this all started happening. And then I realized, oh shit, this is something else entirely. And
Wow.
if me simply choosing not to believe or revealing that I don't believe is going to cause this, then it's actually a bigger problem than I thought. And how do I deal with that? And basically, the short version is I decided to deal with that on a daily basis so that I could be there with the kids, because the alternative, right, was to separate and leave and see the kids every other weekend, or the typical divorce situations. And I thought the kids were better off seeing me stand up for who I am despite all of that than they would have been to see me just leave. And I thought it was important enough for the kids that I be there for them every day at home, being their father. So I was willing to deal with the painful marriage that I had for it was about 7 or 8 years that it was like that before I finally couldn't deal with it anymore.
Does the seventh? The only thing I'm thinking about is just to kind of get some understanding. Now, does the Seventh Day Adventist do you guys have the belief system, like the man is the head of the house and all these kind of structures in place, and spiritually, finance, like all these different things? Is that a belief system? Because I'm thinking
it can be for some. It's not like it's taught in all the Seventh-day Adventist churches. Certainly in the conservative church that we went to, there was a lot of that.
Okay.
But there's, I think I remember at other churches there were women that were allowed to speak and be the pastor and things like that. That was a thing. Like, it wasn't 100% only men doing that. Like, they were open to some things, but they were certainly not progressive in that way at the church we were going to. And depending on which other Adventist church you went to, you might find that, but it wasn't like a major deal.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering if that was a pressure you felt in that whole situation too.
Was there ever? Oh, go ahead, JR.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, I think it was more self-imposed, the pressure of, am I doing the right thing as a father? Am I leading my family correctly? And realizing over those years that, and kind of in retrospect, wishing I had made some different decisions early on in this. Like when Angela said she wanted to take the kids to church, I should have, I kind of wish I had said something different than, I guess we're doing that, or whatever, and agreed to it. But,
I get it's not easy, man.
No, it's not. And, I can't obviously take any of that back, but I certainly wished I had done some things differently, and trying to figure out my role in the family now, because I was the breadwinner, and Angela stayed home for the most part. So I was, making that all possible. But did that mean that I get to call all the shots? I didn't approach it that way. I didn't try to assert myself as, this family will do what I say because I'm the dad. That's never been me. I didn't have that as an example in my dad, and I just didn't feel it was the right way to go. I felt it was better to assert myself with my beliefs and make them clear, certainly to Angela, and in the right circumstances with the kids. But just for the most part, just to get along enough that this isn't painful for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Dang. Was there ever any official like attempts to get you to come back, where like elders ever brought to the house, like, Adam, what's going on? We miss you. Like, you letting your family down? Was it? like stuff like that, or no?
Yes, no, there definitely was.
Okay, so wow, geez.
Yeah, no. When I got baptized,
Wow.
we were asked by our church to stop wearing our wedding rings. They noticed we were wearing wedding rings to church, and they were not into wearing jewelry or adornments and all of that. And I remember that, and I don't even know why I brought that up. Just maybe as another example of how legalistic they were. But the guy who had that conversation with me was the guy running the church, and he very active in like the anti-Catholic thing. He would try to witness to politicians. He would go to DC all the time and try to give out these pamphlets to like Congress and stuff. He was way into that, and he was a neat guy, but he was the guy that like took me out to lunch and said, let's talk what's going on, because if you continue not coming, we're going to have to take you off the books. Like you won't be a member of the church anymore. And I was like, yeah, I'm okay with that. At that point, I was sure enough that I was done that I was like, yep, take me off. That's fine. And so their efforts were too little too late. Not that they ever would have worked, but it definitely was. It didn't work at all, but they definitely proactively tried to get me back to help understand and all of that. Yeah.
Man, but it seems like overall, even though like you had this bad experience, specific experience in your marriage, but it seemed like overall your church experience was actually pretty good overall.
Yeah, it was. The majority of my time spent at these churches that I went to was great. Like I have fond memories of it. The people, the activities, the feelings I had, like the music, like all of that. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed most of it until it went south for whatever reason.
Okay. I like to ask this questions like this at the end. Do you see yourself ever going back or believing? And what would they have to do to get JR back? Because it seems like it's something that you enjoy, but it's just like
Sure. So
because I could see you at a modern church, like involved in the AV ministry. You know what I'm saying? But I'm pretty sure they definitely want people who fully believe. But it's could you see yourself being even open to that type of thing?
So I have been to church since then. I played drums in a church a couple years ago with a friend. I would show up, help set up the stage and the drum. This was one of those churches that was in like a high school gym, so they had to set them up every Sunday. And so I would show up, set up the drums, learn the songs before the service, play 3 songs, and then during the sermon I would leave because I was there to play drums. And the music aspect of it, many churches have wonderful music, and that is, as a musician, that's a regular gig. You don't even need to get paid. You don't even need to pay me. I just want to play and perform. And so I'll do that. I sing in a choir. Normally I do. We sing in a church. And so I am totally open to the experience that I like of church. What I'm not in any way, shape, or form open to is getting sucked into any kind of religion at all. So these.
That's funny. I can actually tell you can sing. Like your voice sounds like you sound like a singer.
Oh, thank you.
Just like being in church for so long, you can almost tell whose voice sounds like a singer, who does.
Right.
Kelly, have you ever met somebody like Adam? Like, what can you tell somebody like Adam who like there's obviously like the fellowship part there where they love it, but there's just a disconnect with the belief. Like, do you know anyone? I got to be honest. I've never met anyone in this situation. I've never met a person like.
Oh yeah,
I've
met people. I've met people like that. They struggle with the. I think from my perspective, what I think people's mind is with belief is a dot on a grid. Like, oh, you're at belief, and that's it. But for me, that's not how belief really works. I think it's a spectrum, just like anything else. Like I like to think about things very practically. Science, we believe something is science until we find out, there's an evolution in it. Oh, now we have a better understanding. That's how I grasp the idea of belief. And I think it's okay for people. I would never tell somebody, don't necessarily come and be a part of something because you're not at that dot of belief system where people say you should be right here.
Right.
Somebody can be at the thing where like, I'm not really sure. Okay, but we had people at a small group. It was like a girl. She was a straight up atheist, like, but she loved to come to our Bible study. She was like, y'all just really cool people, and like when I need somebody to pray for something, y'all can pray for me. I don't necessarily believe this, and it was totally fine. And that was just how it was. And nobody tried to convince her of anything. We just got along very well. I'm not sure where she is now. She was a friend with one of my friends.
Burning in hell where she should be for not believing. Okay, sorry, I couldn't help it.
I got a question for you.
I think that's perfectly fine.
I got a question for you guys. What do you think it means to be an atheist?
You know what? I mean, I guess
it's got a bad rap, I think.
I think it's just not to have a traditional belief system, to not believe that there's a God. There's some additional being outside of what we can see. Yep. That's generally what I believe an atheist is somebody who you only believe in what you see, what you can see. There's no additional force outside of that.
Yeah. So I didn't understand atheists or atheism for a long time until when we were going through this, these years of horrible marriage, right? What I would spend my evenings doing, instead of going to bed on time, I would stay up super late watching stuff on YouTube. And that's when I discovered atheists and people who could explain it to me. And that's when I finally had the words that described how I'd been feeling for years. Even through the good times at church, I was still skeptical of the whole thing, even though I was able to put that aside and enjoy and participate and all of that. But when I really sort of began to understand agnostic atheism is what I would call myself, right? So the simplest definition of atheist is without theism, right? So atheist. And it's simply, for me, the lack of a belief in a God or gods. So that's me. I just don't have it. I've tried, like genuinely tried, open-mindedly, and it just never took hold for me. I don't have that. I don't believe it's in me to have that. And so that's the atheist part of me. And then the agnostic part is the part that I don't really care. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with not believing. I'm not willing to go to all the way to say there is no God. Like, I'm not willing to say that it definitely doesn't exist. All I can say for sure is, for me, I don't have a belief in a God. I am atheistic. I am an atheist. And I'm okay with that. And when my dad wants to know and have discussions with me about, because by the way, he got converted at the Falls Church years later, like after I had left. He is a hardcore believer in Jesus. He's not a member of any particular religion. He is just a Bible follower. And he is concerned about my soul. And when he wants to talk about, talk about all that, then it's, I lost my train of thought. Dad's concerned. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. No, you were saying how your dad is now hardcore. He's a Bible guy. And when you guys talk, he wants to.
Yeah. He wants to know what it would take for me.
Okay.
And he's concerned, of course, that I'm not going to end up in heaven and all of that stuff. I mean, it would take a miracle. Like, literally, it would take something supernatural, because I don't believe basically in anything supernatural, like ghosts or, anything like that. All the way from ghosts that are whatever to God. All of that is supernatural, and it's just not something I believe in. And I'm okay with not knowing that. That's where I was going with this, was the agnostic side of it. Is I don't feel like I need to. I don't feel like when Dad says, where are you going to go? What's the meaning of your life? Why are you here? Why, for him, it's God created him to witness and help other people. And for me, the answer is, I don't know. I don't know why we're here. And I'm okay with not knowing. I don't know where we go when we die, if it's not just to be buried in the ground or whatever. If there's an afterlife, I don't know, and I'm okay with that. Like, I have this life that I'm having right now. I know that, and that's what I'm going to focus on. And so that's my approach to life, and it's been serving me really, really well now for about 15 years. And about 7 of those have been, completely 7 or 8 now, without Angela and without that whole thing. And we're at the point now where I don't think about it. I don't think about, I'm an atheist. I'm not my dad said I'm a proud atheist the other day. I'm not a proud atheist. I don't even talk about being an atheist ever, unless asked. If you ask me, I'll tell you. But it's not like I'm trying to convert anybody or make anybody stop believing. This is just what I believe, and that's fine.
I think people were let's say from my experience, until I actually got to know a couple of, really who people were my really good friends who were atheists or some that were agnostic. People think atheist is anti-God.
Right.
And that's not necessarily... That's not what being an atheist is at all.
That would be an anti-theist.
Friends was one of the most supportive people to my faith. If I was going through something, she would always remind me, "Hey, you got your faith to rely on." And so it was never. I would say that has never been my experience with anyone atheist to discourage me or try to convince me to, stop believing or strictly I believe this. I think it's hard because people aren't willing to have conversations like this and just straight up listen to someone say, hey, this is my experience. This is my real experience, and not try to convince you otherwise. It's right. I think it's fine to ask questions. Hey, I really want to understand. Because there's a ton of things about atheism and agnostics, that maybe I can learn a little bit more and try to understand, okay, how do you, something that always intrigues me is how do you, what anchors your life? What gives you, where does hope stem from? Where does, where do all of these things come from? Because for me, it's so deeply rooted in my faith that I don't know what it's like for other people who don't subscribe to that.
Right.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm the opposite. I try to understand how people can believe it. I don't knock people for it. Obviously my family, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just in a weird point in my life, but I'm I just can't. It doesn't compute for me.
It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't compute for me either. You mentioned atheist isn't anti-theist, right? That is a whole another level. Because when you're
typically there's people being jerks, it's just tropes almost.
And there's plenty that are good intentions, right? There's quote unquote atheists who are really more anti-theists that write books and give speeches. And as an atheist, I can really appreciate a lot of what they have to say, but they take it so far that they totally there's a guy named Richard Dawkins who wrote a book called The God Delusion. It's one of the atheist handbooks.
I've heard
almost,
of that
right?
before. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how Bill Maher is. And I'm I'm not a religious guy, but guys like Bill Maher, it's when you're calling all religious people, even for me, it's I just don't believe any of this stuff, man. I can't go to the point where I'm calling other people stupid. Right. You know what I mean? It's just you just grow up, man. It's
the title of the book.
Right. You find comfort in what you find comfort in. That's what people, just allow people, if that's your, we always, I think that's the part for me that always seems to clash is some people tell people, live your truth. And then when other people want to do it in the way that they want to do it, it's stupid.
Exactly.
I think it could be interesting. Yeah, I may think that, I think it's okay, pumping gas, that's a bit extreme. But for somebody that might have real meaning and it does something for them, okay, fine.
Yeah. I guess I can't.
Doesn't do anything for me. I don't, I need gas in this car. So it's I don't think God is worried about, who stopped for gas and who didn't stop for gas. So but that's for me. But for somebody else who, for whatever reason that establishes their faith, okay.
I feel like I'm in a pretty good place with it all now. I definitely went through a snarky phase where I would have long, drawn out like in-depth discussions or arguments with people like my dad on Facebook. So in a public forum, we would be debating life and God and all this stuff, and I would be snarky, and I would, there's a lot of snarky atheists. Like, it's kind of fun. I follow this guy on Twitter who he calls himself the Godless Spell Checker, and he would basically go to Twitter and search for anybody who posted against. Like, usually it was against atheists, but they would spell it wrong because it's one of those words that's easy to spell wrong. And so he would
That's a pretty cool thing to do. That's funny.
Oh my God.
As a comic, I'm like, that's genius.
I got so many hours of joy out of that Twitter feed. It's unbelievable.
Oh, that's funny, man.
And so I was getting to the point where I was annoying as an atheist, and I was like, you know what? There's no reason for that. Like, I'm not trying to push this on people. I just need to back off. And when asked, when it comes up, sure, I'll debate, I'll talk with you, but I'm not trying to push it on people. I was looking for, trying to put a background up, but it didn't work. But there was a couple pictures I found that sort of captured how I feel. One of them was on the side of a bus in England that says, "There's probably no God. Now stop worrying and enjoy your life."
That's kind of your mantra.
Kinda, right? I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would put it on a bumper sticker on my car, but that kind of captures where I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I understand the snarkiness too, man, because I went through that phase of my life too, where just the mention of it, it would just send me to the moon. Just 0 to 100 like that.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, man, I realize it doesn't matter what people, if it makes you a better person. And I also learned too, like, I'm an adult, I can do what I want to do. So it's all up to me. If I show, and I also learn too, like, if I just show other people respect, they'll show me respect. And I look back at my life and go, you know what? I didn't have an issue with the people at the church. I had personal issues. So, like, why am I holding all this, this anger towards certain people? And it was unwarranted. It was misdirected.
And since sort of getting away from all of that, I feel like, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, I've evolved quite a bit from whatever sort of judgments I had about people, whether founded or not. I'm totally resistant to the idea of that. Like, I don't want to judge people for anything. Like, if you choose to do other stuff than me, whatever it is, assuming you're not hurting other people, go for it, right? Like, you be you, and I... partly because of probably some of the people in the church, from Angela, like, it was easy to judge. It was easy to be like, that's wrong. And I can point out that that's wrong, but I can't say that anymore. Unless it's clearly, hurting other people, that kind of stuff, then we're crossing a line there. But you just being you, as different as it is, great. I love it. And I want to understand it, but even if I don't understand it, it's still okay. Like, just you be you.
Exactly. I think and even in this conversation, me being on the side of, belief, and, I have my different times, like, I feel a certain way, like, am I going the right way? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? Even we're actually the same. You guys are in the camp of, like, I'm atheist, but I'm agnostic. It probably is no God, but so live your life. But we're just saying the exact same thing in a different way. There probably is a God, so live your life. Those are the exact, in the same way.
You're right.
It's just, you're on the side where you don't know, but we don't have all the answers too. So I think it's just getting from a place where we have to stop having conversations with each other to come to a point where it's finite. This is why how do you know? How do I know? It's like, you know what? I'm not ever going to be the person to tell somebody God is real because blah, 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 and run all this list down and try to really convince them. It's because it's super personal. Like you said, you can't put it into words exactly why you feel the way you feel. And sometimes on our side, we can't always put it exactly into words why we feel exactly what we feel.
Yeah.
And I think that should just be okay. It's fine. You're where you are. I'm where I am. And we can share the commonality of the expression of trying to gain understanding of where we are.
Right. There you go.
I think pursuing that, gaining understanding, is way more important than changing somebody else's mind.
100%.
You're right, man. Because a lot of times you're right. Because a lot of times you go, oh shit, I was wrong. Okay, all right, cool.
Exactly. We actually just had that. My pastor just talked about that on Sunday. He was just like, we're freaking dying, trying to die on hills. Do we like? And he like read something. He was like, 20 years ago, this church was talking about don't have a car that's a sports car, or talking about the dangers of having white wall tires. He was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. He was like, some of the stuff that we're talking about now, 20 years from now,
is going to be ridiculous.
It's going to sound like freaking white wall tires.
Yeah.
Like, do we really want to talk about this? Like, you want to argue on Facebook with people about little things that don't matter? He was like, these are the things that matter. These are the things that don't matter. Forget about this. Talk about this thing. Like, who cares?
Yeah,
like
man.
wearing earrings and like he said, oh yeah, he said
that was big. Oh, no. Yeah,
he was like, I was going to hell all the time. He was like, growing up, I was always going to hell. Somebody was telling me, he was like, I didn't get it. He was like, man, I wanted to go to the movies. They were like, no. And he was just like, I was always worried about these things until I kind of like let that all go. He's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that anymore. And it is like you said, you just got to get to a point where you let something go. It's like, you know what? I'm going to work this out how I feel is comfortable. Once I feel like if I feel stable where I am, then I'm okay with that.
Yep, accepting you for you. Yeah, man.
Yeah, and I think it's, for me, I think for Christians, that's what they have to get to the point where is allowing people to not pigeonhole people and convince people to, what we've been talking about, trying to make people behave a specific way. What does that do? It's like, just forget about all that. If they don't behave the way you want them to behave, just freaking love people for who they are. And if they decide to come in and say, hey, I want to be a part of this, let them be a part of it. Like, how has loving anybody ever really hurt them?
I don't know. Like how he was saying in the beginning, how like his family was upset that he wasn't baptized Catholic. And I'm looking at him sitting here right now, like, what does that matter to those people? Look where he is now. What does it matter if he was baptized Catholic or not? And how, like, them being mad right at that moment, how is that affecting their life today, right now?
They probably, probably don't even, unless you
don't even remember.
They probably don't even remember.
Yeah,
they don't.
I got a question for you, Jay. We're almost at an hour and 20 minutes. Someone wanted to know if you were a libertarian out of curiosity.
So politically, I definitely fall in the very progressive side of things, but I also fully understand and sort of wrestle with the idea of libertarianism, where like government as small as possible, don't impede on my right to do what I want to do as long as I'm not hurting others, provide a basic level of government services and let us do what we want to do. I kind of understand that. I can't fully get on board. Part of that is because we've clearly, as a society in America, have proven that if we're just allowed to do whatever we want to do, we're probably going to make some really stupid choices. So maybe we actually do need rules and laws to help us understand and mandate that we treat people fairly, that we try to, rising tide lifts all boats. Let's not just lift the rich people up, that kind of stuff. That we've proven time and time and again that libertarianism and going that way probably is not going to work. I find myself very much on the left.
All right. Well, there you go. You have it, folks.
And I'm not going to push it on people.
That's the best way I've ever heard anybody put it. I feel like, just looking at the way voting went before, I very much so believe if it was that way, they probably bring back slavery.
Right.
To be honest with you.
All right.
There you go.
Well, all right. Well, JR, dude, it was great, man. I'm interested to know how your family takes this. If I don't know if it would happen, but if your ex ever wanted to talk about this and you wanted to, or you and your dad wanted to discuss stuff, we would love to have both of you guys on. Or
that would be fun.
Hopefully you got something off your chest. Hopefully you feel a little bit better. I feel like I know you a lot better now. Some things make more sense, and I know we kind of talked about this kind of stuff before, man. But yeah, it's I think you've had an interesting journey, man, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing. And I know this stuff isn't tough, it isn't easy. It can be tough, and it's when you're talking about family and stuff, it's a very, very thin line to walk. You want to be honest, but you want to be respectful of your family. Whether it's a spouse who's the mother or father of your children. It's a tough subject, man. It's a very, very tough and very personal. And I'm absolutely thankful that you came on, man, and talked about it and spilled some tea. Jared,
did you wanna sing a little bar for us before?
No, he don't want to sing. Don't do that to him.
That's not how I usually work.
I don't do that, but
yeah, right. I will say, if you guys have a totally different podcast that's all about marriage horror stories, I might be persuaded to share some marriage horror stories. It's clearly not the place for that. Was not the focus of today. But,
no. I understand, but I get it. But that's the thing about this kind of stuff. It affects so many different other aspects of your life.
Yeah.
Religion. It can affect where people work, how they work. The type of education that they get. All type of it affects your entire life, man. It affects everything, and it molds you as a person.
It really does. And I'm finally, like, for the past several years, I finally feel like I'm just really settled in a good place with who I am. Like, I don't think I was until 5 or 6 years ago. A year or so after separation, divorce, figuring out who I am. Now I'm settled into that, and I'm just like, I can't remember the last time I was unhappy. Like, it's
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, just content. Even when things suck. I have a flat tire. Okay, I can deal with that. Like, I know how to deal. Like, it does. I had a motorcycle accident and broke my leg. Okay, I can deal with that, right? Yeah.
Oh man.
And certainly there's circumstances that suck, but never really do I feel like depressed or deterred or anything like that. It's just I've got that peace that my dad and religious people talk about having with God. I feel like I have that without God. That's kind of where I'm at.
I respect it.
Okay.
Well, this was a fun one, man. Oh, go ahead. If you got something else to say.
I was just going to say, I don't know how many of my friends and family are going to see this. I shared this when we first started, so it's probably on my Facebook. But with your permission, I've been recording. I'm going to repurpose this for my podcast and kind of make it a bonus episode. So that's where
you got to do.
I know people that I know and love will be watching and listening to that. So that's when the shit hits the fan with the family. No, I should be okay. I think we're fine.
No, I don't think you said anything. Well, they could still be for them to judge, but I didn't think you said anything disrespectful or anything outrageous. It was, very much so. Just from, I think we could totally respectful from your own perspective and what happened to you specifically.
I
think it'd be. I think it was really good. I learned a lot today. So
so did I, man. So so we're gonna try to get out of here again, but it's just sometimes these conversations are so they get moving, man. We get caught up in the spirit. We can't get out of here. You know what I'm saying?
I just want to plug my podcast and then we can end this thing.
Go ahead, plug your podcast.
It's 3 Things with JR. Every week I come on. Lately I've been having
the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost with
That's right. That's the Holy Trilogy, the Trinity. Not Trinity. Yeah, no, it's just me sharing my thoughts on things. Lately I've been calling people on my friends' Facebook list and just randomly like recording them and putting them on the show, and that's been a lot of fun. I've done that the last couple weeks now, and but anyway, 3 Things with JR. This will probably be like a bonus episode or something coming out in the next week or so.
So sweet, man. So thanks again, my man, Adam J.R. Stoffel. I'm Chris Allen and my baby sis Els. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of Do You Believe. Thanks, guys. We're out. Peace.
Thanks for having me.
No problem, man.